A lot of it has to do with just feeling the body and just simply quieting the mind and just feeling. If you think, a lot of times when someone speaks to you, people's wheels are always turning, and those thoughts that they're thinking of gives them a feeling, when really if they just listen, they can just feel what the person is saying, which then in return gives them a thought. And then they connect more so.
Oh, okay, that's a different transition than we're used to doing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And when you can do that within yourself by listening to yourself, by feeling yourself, you then see your own thoughts from a different place, coming from a different source, from your heart. And you tap into that, subconsciously sometimes, on accident in other cases, and those are usually the moments you remember. You're like, oh yeah, and then you can relate that and express that, and people feel that because it came from the heart. So that's what we were working with is, yeah, the magnets and the crystals amplify that. They're just tools to assist in showing us what we're capable of. But now is a time where we don't need any of that, and really you have it all within. And that's what we're going to be speaking on at the 10-10-10 event, is speaking on how vibration affects us consciously. As we go and experience that moment, it's going to be very fun. It's going to be very playful. Because a lot of times people are always looking to have fun, or always trying to be playful, when really it's a state of mind. And it's a place to be within yourself. So at that moment on 10-10-10, we're going to play. And if people have a hard time playing, we're going to pretend to play.
And then it comes.
Then it comes,
Then it
exactly.
comes,
People are like, oh, well, pretending is fake. Well, I like to use the word pretend.
Fake until you make it.
Yeah, well, pretending allows you to do something that you otherwise believed you weren't capable of doing. So if we could pretend not only to play, but let's pretend to like ourselves in that moment, to be pleased with ourselves in that moment. We're going to experience a heartfelt moment. And it is that moment where you can recognize what it truly feels like.
Well, so many of us are so into the, I'm supposed to be this way because my family expects me to be this way, or society expects me to be this way, or somebody, something expects you to be a certain way different than what you really, really are. And that's where the inner struggle comes from. The boy that just committed suicide, I don't think that was really nice, appropriate as to, hey man, if I have sex, I don't want somebody to film me. It doesn't matter if I'm not gay or if I am gay. I don't want somebody to film me and then to broadcast it. I mean, that's sad. But for someone to be who they are and be denied who they are because that's going against the norm of society, that's what's sad, and that's what's so important about what's coming up with the 10-10-10. I mean, the pure acceptance of, hey man, I can love you. I mean, some people are very uncomfortable if you're putting out love to them. I mean, me, myself,
Because they don't think they deserve it is a lot of the
oh,
problem.
I don't know about that, but it's like, I mean, all my life, it's like, I've loved a lot of people. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable when you love them. What's the problem?
I don't know.
I would say that you have what they call the morphogenic field around you, otherwise known as the aura. NASA calls it the biofield.
Okay.
Well, in this field of energy around you, which is vibration, and it has a sound of its own that's inaudible, around that boundary, there is like judgment sometimes. There are different wavelengths of signatures of energies that you carry with you. And if you aren't aware of other people's energy, then their energies are going to go into your field, and that chemistry takes place where you accept it. And a lot of people walk around with that around them, not even knowing it. So when people see love coming into their field that's being projected to them, that boundary filters that out. It's like, well, I don't know you, you don't know me. And those truths that have been accepted are now filtering that out and, victimizing sometimes. Like just a bunch of different things. And that's around people's space. And people who practice this type of modality, you know, healing touch, people who
Right.
sensitize themselves
Right.
to energy,
Uh-huh.
they can feel that boundary and they can instantly tell what type of person you are. And it sounds really far out, but that's where science and, you know, alternative medicine is leading into, is being able to explain how possible it is now.
Right.
And children do it all the time. That's why they're so impressionable. And that's why, as in the
Children
long
and
run,
animals,
yes.
they usually tell who's good and who's bad. So,
Yeah, so in the long run, after a certain amount of time, they're taking in and accepting all this stuff, which really, in return, transforms them. So a lot of these truths that are in your boundaries that have been
Right.
set have to do with your experience of what you've been doing this entire lifetime. And on 10-10-10, we're going to be able to play in assisting others to release that, whether they're conscious of it or not. The
Right.
beautiful part is being in such, you know, virtuous love and powerful bright light, you know, when everybody is feeling in that moment love for themselves, it emanates, it purifies, it transforms and activates. And when everybody can align with that within themselves, magic happens. It's very magical.
well, I know today, this afternoon, being with you, and he had taken me on a guided meditation, and it was so interesting because he's telling me these things, or in the guided meditation, he's saying these things, and it's like, yeah, I'm already there.
Yeah.
I mean, I had told him afterwards, you know, some of the things that he was telling me to think about, the thought was already in my mind before he even told me to think about these things. I
So
found
you
that
were receiving really
well,
well.
yeah. I mean, it was just, you know, when he's talking about the energy, because I mean, that's how I am. It's like I always said, you know, I can feel people's vibes. And it's like, how do you explain that? You know, oh, I read vibes. You know, how do you, you know, and it's like, what? You mean you don't? And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm different, you know, and that's that genius that hinges on insanity that I was talking about. It's like, you know, we all have certain gifts. We have certain special gifts. And it's accepting that we are different, that we do have these gifts, that we do have these abilities, you know, that, you know, to be truly happy, because a lot of us aren't happy because we're different.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're all different for a reason, you know.
Right.
We come and people are like, oh, I wish I was normal. Well, you know, you're born different and you are different to make a difference for a reason. And that's why we're all here. And it's so fun to play. Like today when we were playing, that's what I call it, playing. Simply just relaxing and letting go and just being in that moment. As I was guiding you through that meditation, it was fun because you got to experience, you know, how time really is within yourself. In that space in your heart within yourself, there is no such thing as time. To where, as I suggested to be aware and take a look around you within your heart, you were already seeing that before I even said it. And that's how powerful it is, because you realize, like, oh my goodness, how did he know I was already seeing that, so to speak, you know? Yeah, I'm
Right.
already doing it, but
Right.
how did he know that, and why is he saying that out of everything? And it's so cool, because as you work within yourself, work on yourself, so to speak, you're going to find that what you're seeing within yourself manifests outside of yourself in words or people or opportunities. And you got to live that today, real time. So as you saw within your heart, you got to experience it immediately afterwards, like, oh my gosh. And that's how real it is. And that's how fun it is to play.
Oh, I mean, well, I mean, you
And
could,
how
you could
natural
tell.
it is, really.
Exactly.
It's a natural thing that we complicate things so much. You know, if we just take a breath. You know, Lisa and I were talking, this was a couple months ago, we were talking about how when you go to a store and you ask that person, it's kind of like automatically say, how are you today? You know, they're checking you out and they're probably told to say that. But if you really look at them and you take the time to me, it's vision is so important. So when somebody says, how are you? I'm going to look right at them and say, I'm not so good today, or I'm good today, how are you? And when you really look at them and say that, then they might say, instead of the automatic answer, I find, they might say, it's not such a good day. Or, and I'm always thrilled when somebody says that to me, because I think, okay, now we connected at a different level. We didn't just do that automatic, I'm fine, how are you, because I'm told to say that. And then name tags, I love when people wear name tags and you're in a store, so you can just say, David, how are you today? That's a whole totally different than how are you? So many little things we can do for each other to touch each other, and then you're there with each other. All of a sudden, that moment, you are really connecting
Yeah.
instead of just going through some automated phone transcript like we do so much, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we were saying. That's heart-based. That's feeling. You know, feeling with your heart. And people can say, "Oh, I feel with my body." Yeah, but that feeling really stems from your heart, you know? And if we pay attention to it more, our feelings that is, we'll be able to feel where it's really coming from. Have you ever had a great idea and you get so excited and that excitement comes from the heart? Well, comes a point in time where you feel it so much that you begin to ask, I wonder, was that my idea? Whose idea was that? I wonder where it's coming from. I mean, that's just genius. That's awesome. And that inspiration that sparks, you really find out that from your heart, it is truly divine. It's divine, and it's wow. And the only thing you can feel after receiving those types of thoughts, through those feelings from your heart, that is the moment you're just feeling gratitude. You're like, thank you, and it's a great feeling.
Well, I think some people just don't understand or connect that gratitude with happiness. You know, they, aren't grateful because they don't have what they want, or it's not going the way that they want. And gratitude is, especially in difficult times, is hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes with our children, we're a little too careful with them. We don't want them, because we're afraid of strangers in a sense, but then we kind of keep them back from talking to strangers. And I think if we're there with them in that place, Mark and I were at a restaurant after the show. We were in Hendersonville in a restaurant. There was a little girl in the bathroom washing her hands. And first she looked at me, I just walked up and I smiled at her, and she said, "My mommy doesn't think my teeth are as white as they should be." And she just smiled at me real big, and I said, "I think they're looking pretty good." And then she said, "This fingernail polish, I've washed my hands and it hasn't come off." And it was just I was so excited that she was opening up. She didn't know me, and her mother was in one of the stalls, and she said, "Honey, are you bothering that lady?" And I said, "She's not bothering me at all. I'm loving it." But that kind of innocence where you come up to a person and you feel, I can talk to a person like that. But what we're doing as a society often is when we hear that kind of action going on, then we try to stop our little ones, or stop, them from saying what they want to say. And that was just so honest and just so what she wanted to say.
She read you, and she knew that you were no threat to her, that you were a good person.
Yeah, and that's so important, So I think when people are trying to react to us like that, it's important that we just take a breath no matter how busy we are, and just let them talk. Let them say what they want to say.
Yeah.
Because that was important for her to get that out.
That's it.
And it made me so happy. When I came out, I told Mark when we got in the car, I said, "That was just so cute." It just made me happy all the way home. So so many times we're afraid to do that interaction. Have you ever saw somebody when you're walking down the street and you think, "I like that person"? But if I go up and say, "I like you as a person," then they're going to think of all these.
You're strange.
Yeah,
right.
You're strange.
Right.
So we think it in our head.
Yeah.
People like us, we think it in our head often. But then there is a way we can, gently. I mean, you don't have to say, "I saw you and I like you." That might freak somebody out. But you can, but you can say, "I hope you're having a really good day because I wish that for you." Something like that. And
But then they even find that strange.
Yeah.
I mean, why is it that people have a hard time accepting love?